Alright everyone, so new set means new pre-release tournament, and of course that means new draft strategies that we're going to have to figure out and employ in order to win our pre-release events coming up this weekend. So for those of you who have never been to a pre-release event before, we're just going to go over a quick rundown of the special rules. You draft from 6 unopened packs of BT7. You don't pass around the packs like in some other draft formats for other games. You just get given 6 packs, and those are your cards you can build a deck with. You build a 40 card deck instead of a 50 card deck, and the rest of the cards you don't use, you can use as a sideboard, and you can switch cards in between games. Regular Digivolution is colorblind. That means that, for example, on Jet Sulfimon, instead of having to Digivolve over a level 4 yellow for 3, you can Digivolve over any color level 4 for 3 memory. Options still require their respective color to be on board. Hybrids still need to evolve over their designated color tamer, and the reason why that is because effects which designate a specific color must still be followed. So the hybrid Digivolution isn't like a game mechanic Digivolution like this Digivolve cost is. It's actually like an effect of the card that specifies the color over which it can Digivolve. So I'll show you like an example of what that is later in case you guys are confused, since this is, Jet Sylphie isn't like a true like hybrid card, but we'll get into that. All right. Some effects that these special rules have on the meta is that generic standalone effects have really high value. Digimon with strong ESS, aka inheritable skills, are very high value. Options are inconsistent because you still are tied to the having to have the same color of the option on your board in order to activate it. And because your deck is going to be very much rainbow colored, you can't necessarily guarantee that you're going to have that color in order to activate that option. And cards with specific synergies or which require archetype support are much less powerful, just because you can't necessarily be guaranteed to draft into a strategy that enables that archetype. If you do happen to do so, then that can be a very powerful strategy, but you're not guaranteed to do it, and oftentimes like trying to force it is going to leave you with a weaker deck than you would otherwise have. If you are just kind of in the thick of it and you're not really sure how to evaluate a card's strengths / how I am going to be evaluating a card's strengths is through the following criteria. First, I very much value generic or standalone effects. They have either no condition or very easy to fulfill condition in order to activate their effect. It's a card that has a strong inheritable that can be passed on to other cards that maybe won't have access to that inheritable otherwise. You can definitely do some interesting stuff that way. The cost to play the card. So sometimes you are going to be in situations where you have to hard play some cards from your hand in this type of meta. So the cost is definitely comes up, and especially for like rookies and champions, the cost of the card is very much important because the lower cost will help you play more cards and therefore win out more. DP value, high DP values are very powerful, especially like vanilla beat sticks are pretty good in formats like these, just because they're hard for your opponent to get over with the limited removal that we have access to, and they're going to be forced to either attack over it or just keep getting their face beat in. And finally, I do consider the rarity of the card. So for those of you who don't know, the standard pack ratios of a Digimon pack are you get 2 rare slots, and those 2 rare slots can be occupied by either a rare, or super rare, or a secret rare. So from your 6 packs, you're going to have a total of 12 rare, super rare, or secret rares to work with. 3 uncommons per pack, so you're going to have 18 total uncommons to work with, and 7 commons per pack, which leads to 42 total common cards to work with. So obviously, the super rare cards you're going to be less likely to pull multiples of, so you can't really like account that into your deck building. You kind of just have to hope that you pull them, and if you do pull one, then it's like a big bomb that, or a big boss that you can really use to help you win out on games. All right, and if you've never built a pre-release deck before, I kind of simplified the ratios based on what standard ratios are for a 50 card deck. So I just took like 50 card deck ratios for like a very standard like breakdown of a list, which would be like 14 level 3s, 12 level 4s, 9 level 5s, 8 level 6s, 3 level 7s, and that leaves you room for 4 options or tamers. That's like, it's definitely over on some of the ratios, but it's just like a very like generic like ratio list. I think we've all played decks that have this type of ratio to them. If you were to find the most equivalent version of that in a 40 card deck, then we would have 11 level 3s, 9 level 4s, 7 level 5s, 6 level 6s, 2 level 7s, and space for 5 options or tamers. Of course, that's not very realistic given the constraints of the draft and like what cards you're likely to pull based on rarities. Like for example, the only level 7 in this set is Susanomon, and it's a secret rare, so you're very unlikely to pull it. Of course, if you do pull it, you play it, but we can't necessarily take that into consideration. So I would say that a more realistic ratio or ideal ratio that you should be looking for when building your 40 card deck is going to be 12 level 3s, 10 level 4s, 7 level 5s, 6 level 6s, 1 level 7 if you pull it, and if you don't pull it, you could probably play like the 8th level 5. And finally, that gives you room for 4 options or tamers. Since they're not as powerful and options are very inconsistent, you kind of don't want to index as much into them, so this is like a fair amount of those cards to play, in my opinion. All right, and then for your egg deck, all eggs are uncommon, which means you're going to be pretty unlikely to pull more than 5 eggs in total, which pretty much just means that you're going to play whatever eggs you pull. Don't worry too much about their inheritables. Most of the time, you're not even going to be able to get them off, or even if you can get them off, they're like very low impact. It's not going to make a difference one way or the other if you don't pull like 4 Kapurimons, even though Kapurimon is probably like the most generically good one in the set. Like, don't get too upset if you like only pull, I don't know, I don't even know what the other eggs in the set are, to be honest with you. Throw kind of whatever except for this one. And if you don't pull 5 eggs, like, don't worry about it. Like, you can, it's possible that you're not even going to pull a single egg. You're just going to have no egg deck. I've seen it happen and it sucks, but it's not like a super big deal. Yes, it is a disadvantage, but if you pull like some other good cards for the rest of your deck, then you're still going to be able to win out and have some fair games, I think, in my opinion. All right, specifically for BT7, something to look out for are all the hybrid cards that are in the set. So I did mention before that the hybrid Digivolution does require you to Digivolve onto the color it specifies. So if we take this Burning Greymon card, for example, it says you may Digivolve this card from your hand onto one of your red tamers as if the tamer is a level 3 red Digimon for memory cost of 2. So because the effect specifically says red tamer, it doesn't fall under the colorblind Digivolution rule, since that's only applies to like the Digivolution game mechanic that's up here in Digivolve cost. This is actually an effect of the card, so you have to follow the color that the effect specifies. However, a lot of these hybrid cards actually don't specify color for their other effects. So again, if we look at this Burning Greymon for an example, it says if a card with hybrid in its traits or Takuya is in this source or is in the Digivolution cards, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 4000 DP or less. So in theory, you could actually Digivolve this Burning Greymon on top of a Strabimon, which even though it's a blue card, it has hybrid in its traits, so you can still get off this Burning Greymon to delete an opponent's card effect, because the Strabimon is a hybrid. This card just says you need a hybrid in your traits. It doesn't say it has to be a red hybrid. So that's definitely something to keep in mind in your deck building, and you can find some very interesting synergies among the hybrid and 10 Warriors cards if you keep this in mind. Like, for example, this Rhino Kabuterimon, which is when attacking, if a card with hybrid or insectoid in its traits is in this card's Digivolution cards, then you can Digivolve into an insectoid or 10 warriors in its traits in your hand for a memory cost of 3. So insectoid part, you're kind of going to want to ignore that, but having a hybrid in your traits, very possible, and being able to Digivolve into a 10 warriors card, very possible, because you have options like Ancient Beetlemon, Ancient Kazemon, Ancient Volcanomon, I think the black one, Ancient Sphinxmon, I think, is the purple one. There's a blue one as well. So there's a lot of ancient cards, 10 warrior cards that this Rhino Kabuterimon can go to for a memory cost of 3, which makes it definitely an interesting card. So, and then there's also options which specify having a hybrid on your board, but they don't say that you need X color hybrid. It just says you need a hybrid. Of course, there are some options, so you're bound by the options color rule, but still something that you need to work around and build your deck around should you choose to include these cards. All right, and I do want to touch on this card specifically. Eismon, Scatter Mode, and Eismon I think are going to be super, super insane cards in this format. So Scatter Mode, if you guys don't know, it's on deletion, draw 3, trash 2, so it's Graceful Charity on legs. And then regular Eismon is if this card's trashed from your hand, you can play it without paying its memory cost. And then for each Scatter Mode in your trash, it gets plus 2000 DP. So something I didn't mention previously is that you're not limited to 4 copies per card in this limited format. So you can play as many Eismon and Eismon Scatter Modes as you want, which is pretty crazy. And they're both common cards. So the likelihood of you like pulling multiples of these cards is going to be pretty high. So in my opinion, like you play as many Scatter Modes as you pull, and likewise for Eismons. Like you just want to build the Eismon engine into your deck and just constantly smack with scatter modes and bring back Eismons who turn into beat sticks. If you have more scatter modes in your trash, it's going to be pretty insane if you're the guy who pulls a lot of these, I think. Alright, so now just like we did in the last video, I'm going to go into the full card list for the set, and then I ranked each card from 1 to 4. 4 being very high value and you definitely play it if you pull it, and 1 being it's either too situational, too conditional, too weak. You generally want to avoid playing cards that I rated a 1 unless you absolutely have to, like you don't have any other choice. Alright, so we're going to start off with the eggs. Like I said before, for eggs, you just you play the ones you pull. Like, that's pretty much all you do. The inheritables don't really matter. As far as inheritables that are actually, like, kind of good, I think Brachymon is the most generically good one. It gives you plus 1000 DP on your turn if you have a Tamer in play. I think you're going to be pretty likely to get that effect off, and the rest of them are nothing to write home about, or chances are you're probably not even ever going to get their effects off. So I'm kind of not going to touch on them. Moving on to level 3s, we have the vanilla 2-cost Toy Agumon. Vanillas are very powerful, and because this one is 2 costs, it's going to allow you to choke your opponent. I think you play as many Toy Agumons as you pull, in my opinion. And moving on to Flamemon and Strawbymon, these cards are interesting because number 1, so they both have pretty much the same effect. Flamemon is reveal top 4, add 1 card with hybrid in its traits, Susanomon or Takuya among them to your hand, place the remaining at the bottom, and then on deletion you can play a Takuya from your hand or trash, or no, it's just from your hand without playing its memory cost. So, and then Strawbymon is the same, except instead of searching for Takuya, it searches for Koji, and then you play a Koji on deletion for its inheritable. So these cards don't specify color for hybrid, it just says hybrid. So you can add a Beetlemon, you could add a Zephyrmon, you could add a Jet Sylphimon, etc, etc. These cards are going to be able to pull any hybrid out of your deck, and if you pull a Susanomon, they can search your Susanomon, and if you should happen to also pull their corresponding Tamer, then there you go, you got a bunch of targets in your deck for these 2 cards. I think these cards are very high value, and also notably, they have the hybrid trait as a level 3, so they will be able to turn on your other cards that require hybrids in their sources in order to activate their effects. So unfortunately, these cards are rares, but you are going to be probably pretty likely to pull at least 1 or 2, so highly recommend playing as much of these as you pull in your deck, especially if you index more into the hybrid cards. Bokomon, search top 5, add 1 hybrid or 10 warriors in its type and 1 Tamer card among them to your hand. Place the remaining on the bottom in any order, and then when your Tamer digivolves, gain 2 memory. I mean, this card is pretty self-explanatory. This card is nuts. I mean, the more hybrids, 10 warriors you play, just the higher in value it goes, and being able to search out any Tamers you decide to play as well is just kind of a bonus. And also the memory gain effect, also like a super good bonus. I think, yeah, you play Bokomons if you pull them, especially if you're indexing into a hybrid style deck, which I think you probably should be considering our options in this set. Moving on to the less good level 3s, we have Pulsemon, inheritable. When attacking, if you have 3 security cards, gain 2 memory. A bit situational, but there's a possibility that you get it off. Like, it's not going to be unheard of for you to be at 3 memory and to be able to attack with a card that has this in its sources. I think it's fine. Ghostmon is play cost 3, 5000 DP. That's pretty much like the highest attacking stat for a Rookie, so that's pretty good. But unfortunately, it does cost 1 to Digivolve, so if you're stuck with this as your only level 3, and then you have to Digivolve into it and pass over 1 memory, that feels kind of bad. Lopmon, when you play a Tamer, gain 1 memory as it's inheritable. Very, very so-so. I don't think you're going to be playing too many Tamers in your deck unless you like really draft into like a very Tamer heavy like packs, and even then like it's just a little too conditional, I think, because the Tamer can only Digivolve into a hybrid of its like color, and then you also have to pull that corresponding hybrid. This is just a little too situational, so I think Lopmon loses value in that aspect. Neimon, kind of the same deal. On play, you play a Tamer with an inherited effect from your hand without paying its memory cost. So again, like it really depends on you having to play multiple of these Tamers, which in and of themselves are going to be inconsistent due to that color restriction. So I think this card loses value because of that. Huckmon, inheritable, reveal top 5 cards of your deck, add all cards with Sistermon in their names among them to your hand. There are 2 Sistermons in this set, but neither of them do anything because you need the Sistermons from the last set to activate their effects. So I think this card is just bad. Gomamon, when played from Digivolution cards, draw 2. In theory, you could get this off with a Weimon or King Weimon, or I think it's called Tidal Wave, their option card. But it's like a situational combo. If you do draft into a lot of Weimon stuff, I think it's like a pretty viable strategy to go for. And then in that case, this card goes up in value, but only play this if you draft into that type of stuff. Otherwise, the effect is completely useless. And it's just a 3-cost vanilla. Harrismon, when this card is trashed due to activating this Digimon's Digiburst, return this card to its owner's hand. Yeah, there's like no Digiburst cards in this set except for this card's own line, and none of them are that good except for the level 6, and even that one is just kind of so-so. So the chances of you having this in your sources while you go into that level 6 is very, very low. So this card's bad. Gatsumon, you may reveal one green Digimon card from your hand, and if you do, place it on top of your deck. This card is absolutely awful. There's no way to gacha in this set outside of Metal Mamimon, and no. It specifically says you have to go into a green Digimon, and no. Betamon, on play, reveal top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 green level 4 Digimon or 1 green Tamer card among them to your hand. This card, because it specifies green level 4 or green Tamer, it kind of shoots itself in the foot that way and is just like a strictly worse version of Strabimon and Flamemon. And even then, I don't think you play this card at all, honestly, unless you draft really heavily into like JPs and Beetlemons and Metal Kabuterimons. Dorumon, reveal 3 cards from the top of your deck, add 1 Digimon card with X antibody in its type and 1 Kota Duomodo card from among them to your hand. Place the remaining on the bottom deck in any order, and inheritable. When you place a card under this Digimon as a Digivolution card, gain 1 memory. So there are X antibody cards. It's pretty much like this one's like whole like Digivolution line going up. All have the X antibody trait. And then Kota is notable as being like the only memory setter Tamer in this set. So if you pull a Kota, you're probably gonna play it. And if you do, then maybe this card goes up in value as a way to search it out. But it's again like very inconsistent, and I think like the X antibody like gimmick doesn't really work unless you like really hard draft into it somehow. So I think we kind of just leave this card as like a don't play. Monotamon, reveal top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 with Knightmon or Deadly Axemon and its name among them to your hand, remaining on the bottom. Knightmon and Deadly Axemon requires like too much synergy in order to pull it off. You pretty much have to pull like 4 copies of each card in order to do something with that kind of deck, and I'm pretty sure both of them are rares, so it's going to be super, super unlikely for you to be doing that. So I think this is just kind of a dead strategy. Sistermon Blanc Awakened. This legit does nothing because Sistermon Blanc isn't in this set, and you need that card in order to activate Awaken's effect. And the on deletion requires Jessamon stuff, which again, not in this set. So you definitely don't play this at all. Eismon Scatter Mode. I already touched on these. Like, these are absolutely insane. I think you play as many of these as you pull as possible. Monochromon. This sets 8 Mon. I think you play as many of this one as possible. You just beat face with Monochromon, and I think that is probably going to win you some games. All right, moving on to these hybrids, which are the ones that have effects when you digivolve them on top of a card with hybrid and its trait. I think these are actually very, very interesting, especially because you can get them off, again, if you pull Strabimons or Flamemons. You can get off these cards on Digivolution effects. You are going to be playing, excuse me, you're going to be paying 3 memory to get those effects off, but it is possible. Or, like, even if you, like, let's say, digivolve into Beetlemon or a Kazemon or a Kumamon, then you can digivolve into these for 1 and still have that hybrid in your traits. So I think that's interesting because they digivolve over any level 4 for 1, and that gives you just a little bit more cycle. All right, so Burning Gray on digivolve, if you have a hybrid in its traits or Takuya, then delete one of your opponent's Digimon 4,000 DP or less. I think this is probably, like, I'm not going to say the best, but I'm going to say it's like the better ones out of all of these, just because, like, to delete something on Digivolve 4,000 to be or less, pretty much like any rookie. I guess you could get rid of a scatter mode on your opponent's side of the board, but I don't think you want to be doing that, honestly. But yeah, it'll get rid of any rookie except for Ghostmon and I guess Sistermon Blanc. Oof. Korikakumon, if a card with hybrid in its traits or Tommy, Himi is in this Digivolution cards. One of your opponent's Digimon with no sources can't attack or block. So I'm sure we all know the Korikaku Tommy synergy, which basically allows you to, like, perma-freeze one of your opponent's Digimon, as long as this card is allowed to keep attacking. Yeah, it's fine. Even if you just get 1 freeze off, I think it's fine. It's not a deletion, but it's something, especially since there's actually no blockers in the set except for 1, and it's really bad. So this is going to be, like, one of your only ways to, like, stop your opponent from attacking you, I feel like. Metal Kabuterimon, when digivolving, if you have a hybrid or JP in your sources, suspend one of your Digimon with 6,000 DP or less. I think this is really good. It's going to let you pretty much run over any other level 4, or at the very least trade, and absolutely run over every other level 3. And I think that's good. Or you can even, like, have something else bigger run over that card, and yeah, it's fine. Fine card. Kendo. I think this one is less good than these other 3 because the only thing it does is give itself jamming, which is fine, but I mean, it's not like a card that's going to give you, like, immediate value against your opponent like these other 3 are. So I think you give these priority, and then Kendo is like whatever. Same thing with Zephyr. Same effect, except it gives all your security Digimon plus 3,000, which I think is fine. Maybe it buys you a turn. It dissuades your opponent from attacking your security. It's possible. If you happen to pull a Zoe, then, you know, you can combo with Zoe, and then you get plus 6,000 for 1 turn in your security. Well, I don't know. It's okay. Jaeger Loimon. So same deal, except it gives itself retaliation. So it's kind of like a suicide bomber, I guess. You could use a retaliation to kill one of their big guys who's suspended. I think it's kind of whatever. Yeah, I think out of all of these, I think this one might be the worst one, unfortunately. Beetlemon. So this one says, when digivolving over anything, as long as you just digivolve, you can reveal 5 cards from the top of your deck and add 1 Digimon card with hybrid. Again, it's just a generic hybrid searcher. And 1 JP. I think Beetlemon is very good. And you can also hybrid digivolve it over Green Tamer, so you can digivolve it over JP. So if you pull JP, this card has pretty high value. And if you don't pull JP, as long as you have other hybrids in your deck, I think this is a pretty good searcher card to run, since it doesn't need to digivolve over a hybrid or a Tamer. It just has to digivolve over anything. I think it's fine. Teskbon. When digivolving, one of your Digimon gets plus 2,000 DP for the turn. This is like a really whatever effect. I guess it can make himself 7,000 for the turn, but that's still, like, worse than Monochromon, which is 8,000. I guess you could buff something else up on your side of the board, and the play cost is only 4, but you don't get the effect if you play it. So I think it's like whatever. Shellmon, play cost 4, distribution cost 2, and it's 6,000 DP vanilla. That's fine, nothing wrong with it. Bulkmon, inheritable. Play cost 4, Digivolution cost of 2, 5000 DP. Notable because this is going to be one of the only ways you can get blocker. So the effect is on your opponent's turn while you have 3 or more security cards. This Digimon gains blocker. It's a conditional blocker, but in theory, you could turn like a big level 6 that you have on your board into a blocker since it's a security 3 or more. Worth considering for that reason alone, but if they somehow get you lower than 3 security, then they're going to turn off your blocker, so that's really weird. They're essentially going to force you to block when you're at 3 security, otherwise you're not going to be able to anymore. Weird. Kumamon. When Digivolving, trash 1 Digivolution card from the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon, and it can hybrid Digivolve over a blue tamer for 2 memory. It's fine. It's nothing to write home about. I guess you could combo this with Korikakumon, of course. If you pull Korikaku, you could combo it with Tommy, of course. There's stuff you could do. I think the blue hybrids, just like as a general note, are going to have a little bit more value than the other colors just because there's 2 blue tamers in this set. So like the chances of you pulling one of them is like a little bit higher. But yeah, that's really all there is to say about Kumamon. Philmon, Digiburst 2. One of your opponent's Digimon gains security attack -2 until the end of your opponent's next turn. This card is trash. Straight trash. Kazemon, it's just it can hybrid Digivolve over yellow. It's just too conditional since you have to pull Zoe in order to get the hybrid off. Other than that, the only thing it has going for it is that it has the hybrid trait, so you can use it to fuel your level 5 hybrid effects. Or your level 4 hybrid effects that can Digivolve for 1 over a level 4. For that reason, I think Kazemon has value, so this is actually probably a 2 and not a 1. That's my bad. Tortomon, unheritable when attacking, reveal one green Digimon card from your hand and place it at the top of your deck to give this Digimon plus 3000 DP. This card is trash. I guess you could, in theory, combo it with like Metal Mamamon, but don't do that. And then you're stuck running like weird green level 6s. Don't do that to yourself. Skull Knightmon. Excuse me. When attacking, trash all the Digivolution cards of one of your... actually, I'm not even going to read this. I'm just going to tell you guys that in order to make Skull Knightmon and Deadly Axemon work, you have to pull like multiple copies of each of these cards. And Skull Knightmon is a rare. Deadly Axemon is a common, I suppose. But I mean, look at the stats. This is a play cost 4, 3000 DP for a level 4. That's pretty bad. This is also play cost 4, 3000 DP for a level 4. It's completely reliant on like being its own deck, and you're not going to be able to do that in the set, so I think you kind of just ignore that. Grumblemon, so this falls into the same category as Kazemon, except for you actually never want to Digivolve over your Kota, I feel like, because it's the only memory tamer, so I think you just get more value from having the Kota sitting on your board doing nothing except setting you to 3 every turn, over than like using it to Digivolve it into a Grumblemon, unless you're like going for game, I guess. But again, he does have the hybrid text, and he does enable some of your other hybrids to use their effects, so I guess he's a 2 technically based on that, but yeah. Gigasmon, this is the only actual blocker in this set. This is the only card that has like the blocker text on it, but it's 3 cost and it's only 6000 DP as opposed to like the other 6000 DP blockers, which are only 2 cost. I guess the reasoning for that is to offset the fact that it can hybrid Digivolve, but again, you're not hybriding over your Kota, I feel like, unless you really have to. And I guess he doesn't lose 2 memory when attacking, so that's another thing he has going for him, I guess. But no. Like even playing him for the hybrid text feels bad because he's still 1 more to Digivolve than the other hybrids. Oh, it's not good. Okay, Dorou Greymon. So this is one of the X antibody line. So this one is on your opponent's turn while you have another Digimon in play with X antibody in its traits, or a card with X antibody in its traits in this Digimon's Digivolution cards. This Digimon gains blocker. So I guess I lied. Gigasmon isn't the only blocker, but is this really a blocker when you need like you need another X antibody to make this a blocker? And it's weird. I guess you can play multiple Darugumons, and then they make each other blockers, or if you happen to like pull a lot of this guy, the Dorumon, I guess. I don't think so. But yeah, I guess this card only has value if you pull like a lot of Darugumons and multiple copies of this one, and then you can run blockers. Sure. Wendigomon. When Digivolving, reveal top 5 cards of your deck, trash all tamer cards among them, place the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. Absolute trash ability in this kind of format. The inheritable is once per turn when you play a tamer, draw one. That's okay, but you don't want to use the when Digivolving effect like at all costs. Luckily, it's a you may, so you don't have to do it, but it's terrible. I think you have like way better cards to play over this. Weimon. You may Digivolve this card from your hand onto one of your purple tamers as if this tamer is a level 3 purple Digimon. So same thing with Kazemon and Grumblemon. I will say about Weimon is that at least Koji is probably like one of the more like generically good tamers, just because it's just a draw one trash one on play. So you can kind of use that in like any deck. So I guess for that reason, Weimon kind of has value because you're probably going to be playing Koji. But it doesn't do anything besides that, so yeah. I guess it's a little better than Kazemon in that sense, and definitely better than Grumblemon. But again, it still has the hybrid text, so it's worth it just for that. Sistermon CL has the same problem Sistermon Blanc Awaken does, which is it needs CL from the last set in order to actually use its effect, and it needs like a Jesmon or a Hugmon in order to actually use its effect, so this is actually just like a booty vanilla. Don't play it. Jet Sylphimon. This is probably the best level 5 you can be running. I think you definitely play as many Jet Sylphimons as you pull, especially if you pulled like a lot of level 4 hybrids, which you probably will be. So when Digivolving, if you have a hybrid in your sources, recovery +1. Good. And if you somehow manage to get a tamer in your sources, like let's say, like I don't know, you went Tommy into Kumamon, and you can Digivolve Kumamon into Jet Sylphimon, that would still only cost 1 memory. Pretty good, because it doesn't say you need a yellow tamer in this card sources. It just says you need a tamer. The other ones are also the same way with that wording, so keep that in mind. Lucemon Chaos Mode is the other secret rare in the set besides Susanomon. So the Lucemon text that you can Digivolve over Lucemon doesn't matter because obviously Lucemon is from BT4. And the other effect is for every 10 cards in your trash, reduce the memory cost when playing this card from your hand by 3. So let's say you're 20 cards deep into your deck, which is halfway through your deck. I think that's fine. You would be reducing cost by 6, so you'd be playing him for 8. So you could be like a 8 memory, delete a tamer or a level 6 or lower Digimon, which is essentially Gaia Force. Yeah, I think if you pull Lucemon Chaos Mod, I think you play it, and especially if you pull also the other option, what's it called, Ultimate Sacrifice, that will let you like reuse it, then I think it's good. Yeah, you play it if you pull it. Aldemon. So again, when Digivolving, if a card with hybrid in its traits is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, this Digimon gets plus 4,000 DP for the turn. And this is also one of the only level 5 hybrids, or the only level 5 hybrid to have an inheritable, which is if this Digimon has hybrid or 10 warriors, keyword 10 warriors, in its traits, you don't activate security effects on option cards it checks. So it gives you ADP permanently if you're 10 warriors or hybrid. I think that's pretty good, actually. So if your boss lineup is mostly comprised of like 10 warriors, or like you pulled an Emperor Greymon or a Magna Gurumon, then I think Aldemon is actually pretty insane. And it turns itself into a beat stick for a turn. So yeah, it's good. And you can Digivolve it for 1 if you have a tamer in your sources. So yeah, good card. Beowulfmon, definitely not as good, unfortunately. So tamer in your sources, Digivolve for 1. And then the effect is when attacking, you can return 1 card with hybrid in its traits from this card's Digivolution cards to your hand to return one of your opponent's level 4 lower Digimon to its owner's hand. So it's a bounce effect. This is probably like a pretty good tempo card. You have to have, and it lets you like reuse one of your other hybrids from over here. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Yeah, I think it's a good card. Rhino Kabuterimon. You can digivolve for 1 if you have a tamer in your source, and when attacking, if you have hybrid in your source or insectoid, but mainly hybrid, you can digivolve this Digimon into an insectoid or 10 warriors in its traits for a memory cost of 3. I think this is a really good effect in this format because you have so many 10 warriors targets you could go into with this card. So you're not just restricted to ancient Beetlemon. You could go into let's see, what are the other ones? Ancient Megatheriumon, ancient Kazemon, ancient Volcanomon, ancient Sphinxmon. You have targets. You have targets with Rhino Kabuterimon. I think it's going to be a pretty good card. All right, moving on. Brachymon is just a 10k vanilla beat stick. Fair enough. Metal Greymon, I think this card is interesting. So on play, if you have a tamer, doesn't specify what color tamer, it just says if you have a tamer in play, you gain 2 memory. So it's a play cost 5, level 5 for 7 KDP. Not bad. And if you don't have a tamer in play, then you can play a red tamer card from your hand without paying its memory cost. So the only red tamer in the set is Takuya. Takuya costs 3. So essentially, if you have Takuya in your hand and this card, you can play Metal Greymon for what is effectively a play cost of 4 because you offset the play cost of 3 of the Takuya. So you get a play cost 4 level 5 on your board and a tamer in 1 turn. I think that's fairly reasonable. Of course, you do have to pull Takuya and this card, and you have to have them both in your hand together. And Metal Greymon is a super rare, and Takuya is a rare. Unlikely combo for sure, but it's something to keep in mind. Weimon. This card's interesting. Not necessarily because of the on play, but just because you can combo it with King Weimon, which we'll get into. But of course, the on play is you can play a level 3 Digimon card from one of your sources as another Digimon without paying its memory cost. Of note, you cannot play tamers with this effect because the card specifically has to say you can pull a tamer out of source. Like I think there's a card in the set that does that called Starlight something. So yeah, and then if you do, you may place 1 blue Digimon card from your hand at the bottom of one of your Digimon's Digivolution cards. It specifies blue Digimon, makes it a little tough, but I think just being able to Kaiser nail something else out to expand your board a little bit can be okay. And then, of course, if you combo this with your King Weimon, then you can get a lot of value that way. But we'll get to that once we get to King Weimon in level 6s. Daipenmon. When digivolving, for each Digimon your opponent has with no Digivolution cards, draw 1. That's kind of an interesting effect. There's not a lot of source stripping here outside of like Tommy and the other blue hybrid card that isn't Korikakumon. What's his name? Kumamon. And I guess Korikaku. Does Korikaku itself source strip? I forget. Yeah, Kumamon source strips 1. Korikaku does not source strip. Okay, so you have this card and Tommy to source strip. And I mean, maybe your opponent hard played a card or something, so it's possible for you to be able to draw off this one. And then the other effect, which is kind of interesting, is while a card with hybrid in its traits is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, none of your opponent's level 3 Digimon can attack. Interesting to say the least. If your opponent somehow drafted like a rookie rush strategy where they literally drafted like 20 Toy Agumons and are just trying to play Toy Agumon beatdown and then digivolve them into the green 8mon, I think that could be funny. That might be a strategy. There you go. You can play Toy Agumon and what's it called? Triceramon? What is this? Monochromon, yeah. Toy Agumon, Monochromon, beatdown. That could be a strategy. But I guess in theory, Daipenmon can stop that. So maybe this is a card you keep on hand in your sideboard in case your opponent busts out that strategy. And this card also has the hybrid text for whatever that's worth. Triceramon, vanilla, still somehow worse than the other one. I already forgot its name. Mega what? Megamon. Monochromon. Jesus Christ. Monochromon. Yeah. Anyway, this card's fine. It's just vanilla. Orochiman. When you trash this card in your hand using one of your effects, draw one. So if you are really indexed into your Gigasmon package, then you can get a lot of value out of Orochiman. And inheritable. When attacking once per turn, you may trash one card in your hand to gain one memory. I think that can come up. But yeah, especially if you are heavily invested into Gigasmons, like you pulled a lot of them, this card goes up in value by a lot. And it's a common, so that's good. Where Garurumon is the same deal as Metal Greymon, except for the inheritable I think is not as good. So the Metal Greymon inheritable, I don't think I touched on that, is your turn, once per turn, when one of your opponent's Digimon is deleted, gain a memory. So if you like attack over something, you can gain a memory. I think that's cool. And this one is when this Digimon becomes unsuspended during your main phase, gain one memory. So I think this is like a little tougher to pull off because I don't really know like what ways there are to unsuspend yourself out of Magna Garurumon effect and Electric Rush. So this is a little more combo oriented. But same deal with the tamer stuff. So if you have a Tommy or a Koji, or not Koji, who's the blue guy? Oh, it is Koji. Okay. Oh, the purple guy's Koichi. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Yeah, so if you have Tommy or Koji, then I think this card can gain some value. So maybe this is a 2, actually, not a 1. Boutmon, inheritable when an opponent's Digimon attacks a player. If you have 3 or more security cards, unsuspend this Digimon. So yeah, the keyword is on your opponent's turn. So really what you're supposed to combine this with is the Boutmon or the Bulkmon, which gives you blocker if you're at 3 more security. So this kind of gives you like a pseudo Mechanori effect, but it's like such a weird combo and you have to have like this exact stack in order to pull it off. I don't think it's worth it. Stephomon. When Digivolving, if this Digimon has 1 Digivolution card, you may place up to 2 level 4 or lower yellow Digimon cards from your hand at the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution cards in any order, then draw 1 for each Digimon card you placed. Woof, mouthful. No. This card is bad. This card's so bad. So it specifies yellow Digimon in order to get off the draws. That's already like an ask. And then it's just to like cycle your hand. So it's a little weird. I guess you can, in theory, unclog your hand with this, but you only can have 1 Digivolution card in order to activate this effect. So essentially, you had to have had Hard Play to level 4, and then you Digivolved it into this, and then have yellow cards in your hand in order to cycle. No, that's not worth it. And the inheritable is not good either. It's when this card is trashed due to activating Digiburst, gain security attack +1. The only card that Digibursts is the yellow version of this card, the level 6 version of this card. I mean, not Kazuchimon, freaking Rasenmon, which it's a fine effect, like, but it's too much to ask for to combo it with this card. Like, you don't need the Digiburst support for Rasenmon. Rasenmon kind of stands on its own. Momotairomon is awful in this format. Look at top 3, Digivolve into a green level 6 Digimon without paying its memory cost. It's nope. The only good like green level 6 is Ancient Beetlemon, and you can get off Ancient Beetlemon with Rhino Kabuterimon instead, and it's like way better. So yeah, don't do that to yourself. Dark Knightmon, again, you need the Skull Knight and Knightmon support in order to pull this off. So it's just too much of an ask to be able to pull that many cards in order to get this off. Dorou Greymon. So this card is interesting. On Digivolving, you can put a black card with X antibody in its type from your hand, which is I think all the black cards in the set almost, except for the hybrid ones. If you do, this Digimon can't be deleted by effects, and its DP can't be reduced until the end of your opponent's next turn. So basically, this card is guaranteed to live, essentially, if you can get this effect off. I guess unless you attack with it, but then what was the point of using that effect anyways? And then the inheritable is if this Digimon has X antibody in its type, this Digimon gains security attack +1. I think the only X antibody level 6 is the corresponding black card, which is Dorou Greymon. So if you pull Dorou Greymon, then this goes up in value by quite a bit. So that's something you can look out for. Like the whole Black X antibody line feeds pretty well into itself. So if you like pull like multiple copies of like each stage, I think it's a worthwhile investment, like something you can definitely look to build towards. But I don't think it's better than like doing hybrid stuff or doing Eismon stuff. So just keep that in mind. And Telemon, when digivolving, play a purple tamer card with a play cost of 3 or less from your trash without paying its memory cost. Absolutely trash. No, super conditional. Not worth it. Was it Brachymon? So, yeah, so it can digivolve for 1 if you have a tamer in your sources. And then the effect is on deletion if a card with hybrid in its form is in this Digimon's Digivolution cards. You can play a purple tamer card from your trash without paying its memory cost. This is by far the worst tamer. Or no, not worst tamer, worst hybrid. This is by far the worst hybrid. Don't play this one. Yeah. Okay, moving on to level 6s. Kazuchimon. So Kazuchimon, I think, is going to be like probably one of the most generically good level 6s that you can hit. It is a super rare, but if you hit it, you're going to play it. Effect when digivolving, if you have 3 or more security cards, gain 2 memory, so it's a 3 to digivolve if you have 3 or more security. If you have 2 or less security, then you recovery +1 until there are 3 cards in your security. So it's an excellent recovery. It can come out for 3, and then if you do have 3 or more security cards, so you played it for 3 memory, or sorry, digivolved into it for 3 memory, then you gain security attack +1, so he's like a pressure card, and he's 12 KDP, which is fairly decent. Alright, Kazuchimon, yep, you play it if you pull it. Emperor Greymon, this card is really good. When digivolving Blitz, already good. And then if it's blocked, you unsuspend it, gain a memory for each Digivolution card this Digimon has with hybrid in its traits. So you're very unlikely to be getting blocked just due to the sheer lack of blockers. But the Blitz is good. And Emperor Greymon can also warp over Takuya. So that's definitely something to look out for. I think this is one of the better ones that you could be running. Play if you pull. Magna Gurumon. So this one says, when digivolving or when attacking, once per turn, return 1 card with hybrid in its traits from your sources to your hand to return 1 of your opponent's Digimon with the same level as the return card to its owner's hand. So it's a bounce effect, very powerful, I think. And also it allows itself to restand, because whenever an effect adds a card to your hand, you may unsuspend 1 of your Digimon. No, it doesn't say that the card has to be added by its own effect, just by any effect that adds a card to your hand, whether that be from bouncing it back or from drawing a card. So I think Magna Gurumon, very good. Your opportunity to get off multiple attacks is pretty strong, and the bounce effect to board control also pretty strong, and you can warp it over Koji. Pretty strong. Not as generically strong as Emperor Greymon, I think for the Blitz, but I think this one for the board control is pretty on par. Ancient Beetlemon. So out of all the Ancient / 10 Warriors level 6s, I think Beetlemon is probably going to be the highest pressure one. So once per turn, when one of your Digimon with 10 Warriors in its type or hybrid in its form deletes an opponent's Digimon in battle and survives, trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. So something to note, if you have any piercing effects, the order that you resolve them is that you must trash your opponent's security first, and then you do your piercing security checks. So that's always the order it goes in. You have to resolve it in that order. You don't get a choice. So just remember that. And then on deletion, it has the same effect that all the other Ancients do, which is you can play 1 green level 4 or lower card with hybrid in its traits, so it specifies green. They all do. They specify their respective color. So in this case, you could play a Beetlemon or a Metal Kabuterimon from your hand when your Ancient Beetlemon dies, which could happen. You could get that off. But yeah, Ancient Beetlemon I think is going to be like one of the more higher pressure Ancients that you could be running if you choose to go into like a 10 Warriors top end. Also to note is that it doesn't have to be the Ancient Beetlemon itself that kills the opponent's Digimon in order to get off the trash effect. It's any card with hybrid or 10 Warriors on your side of the board can kill and you can get off the Ancient Beetlemon effect. Alright, moving on. The next level 6 that's going to be pretty good is Nidhogman. So, effect is when you trash this card from your hand using one of your effects, gain 1 memory. So, you can definitely get this off with Scatter Mode. And then, when Digivolving, you can trash a card in your hand to delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. A pretty generically good overall card, especially if you are really heavily invested into Eismon Engine. I think Nidhogg goes up in value. King Weimon. So when attacking, you can play 1 level 3 Digimon card or 1 Weimon from this Digimon's Digivolution sources as another Digimon. So remember, let's go back to what Weimon did. So Weimon was an on-play effect, which said you can play a level 3 Digimon card from one of your Digivolution cards as another Digimon. And if you do, you would place another blue Digimon card from your hand at the bottom of one of your Digimon's Digivolution cards. So essentially what you would be doing is that you would be going into, let's see, a stack with Weimon and King Weimon. You would swing with King Weimon. King Weimon would bring out Weimon. Weimon would bring out a level 3 from your source. And then you could stack another, like, let's say, level 3 into your King Weimon sources so you could do it again next turn. It's a pretty good way to board expand, I think. Definitely something that is worth considering. And both King Weimon and Weimon are common, I believe. Yes, so, hey, it's a strategy. It's a strategy. Rasenmon. So, normally this card is pretty bad, but I think in a limited format it has some uses. So, the first effect is when digivolving into this card from your hand, the memory cost of the digivolution is equal to the number of cards in your security. If you're at 0 security, it costs 1. So, this can potentially be a cheap digivolution. I would say on average you're probably going to be around 3 security, so it's going to cost 3, which is pretty much right on target for what you want a level 6 to be. And then the effect is you can digiburst up to 4, and for each card you digiburst, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 3000 DP for the turn. I believe this is the same wording as Shine Greymon, so you can split how the damage is done. Let's just double check that real quick. Shine Gray. Spend all your for each tamer you suspend. This way, activate the following effect. One of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 4000 DP for the turn. Yeah, let's see. One of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 3000 DP for the turn for each card trashed by this card's effect. I believe it's like flipped, but I think you can resolve it the same way. So you can split the way you deliver the damage. So you could, let's say, Digiburst 4, so that's minus 12,000. So you could do minus 9 and then minus 3 to something else. Or you could do minus 6 to 2 things. I think that's pretty reasonable effect. It's a good form of removal, minus DP. It can be versatile. It can be cheaply costed, especially if you're at lower security. I think it's fine. All right, going into the other ancient cards, we have Ancient Megatherium. So this one is when you digivolve and you have hybrid in your traits. You can source strip 1 from the bottom of each of your opponent's Digimon. So this is another source stripper card. And then you draw 2 for each Digimon your opponent has with no Digivolution cards. I mean, drawing is okay, I guess, but it doesn't really do anything to like immediately affect the state of the board. Like, okay, yeah, you source stripped 1 from the bottom of all your opponent's Digimon, but is that really going to do anything to help you in the long run? I don't think so, unless you can somehow like get some crazy like Kori Kakumon loop going. Nah, I don't think. Like, you get some crazy Tommy Kori Kakumon stuff going off with this thing. I don't know. I doubt that's something that you're going to be able to do. But yeah, I think out of all the ancients, this is probably one of the less good ones. Ancient Kazemon, opponent's turn. If you have hybrid in your sources, then all your security Digimon get plus 4000 DP. Nothing to write home about, but it does come up. And then it has the same on deletion effect as all the other ancients, which is you can play a level 4 yellow hybrid from your hand on deletion. I think this one's fine. It's fine. Ancient Volcanomon, when digivolving, de-digivolve 3 if you have hybrid in your sources. Oh yeah, I don't even think you need hybrid in your sources. Hold on. When digivolving, de-digivolve 3. Oh, you don't even need hybrid in your sources for this. That's interesting. Okay, fair enough. But Digivolve 3 is okay effect. It's gonna be one of your only forms of quote unquote removal. Your opponent's probably not going to be able to build back up that stack, and definitely not into the same thing that it was, because the likelihood of them having 2 of that card, especially if it's a boss, is very low. So I think this card has value. And then on deletion, play a black level 4 hybrid. Yeah. I think it's better than Megatherium. I think it is more interesting than Ancient Kazemon. I will give it that. Oh, I should probably go big screen again. Ancient Sphinxmon. When digivolving, you may delete one of your Digimon with 10 warriors or hybrid in its traits. You could delete itself if you wanted to. To delete one of your opponent's Digimon whose level is less than or equal to the deleted Digimon's level. So I guess in theory you could suicide this bomb this card to delete an opponent's level 6, which I don't know if that would necessarily be worth the investment of doing so, but hey, it's an option. Or if you have like another hybrid on your board, you can pop that and kill one of their level 4s or level 5s, I guess. And then you can play a purple level 4 hybrid from your hand on deletion. So I guess something you could do is you can go into this card, kill itself, kill one of your opponent's level 6s, and then play a Weimon from your hand, or a Liomon, or whatever the purple hybrid card is called. I guess. Ebon Wumon. This card's kind of interesting. So when digivolving, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, and then you gain 1 memory for each of your opponent's suspended Digimon. So it's normally 5 to digivolve, but I guess you could get it down to probably 3 or even 2, depending on like your timing and how you play it. And then on your opponent's turn, all your opponent's Digimon gain your turn. You must trash 1 card in your hand to unsuspend this Digimon. Interesting effect. I honestly don't know what to make of this card. So on the one hand, it's a 13,000 DP attacker. So he's a big boy. It can come out for less than 5 memories. So that's pretty good, especially if you can get it out for maybe even 3 or 2 memory. And it is going to force your opponent to discard cards in order to unsuspend. But the problem is that that's not necessarily a deterrent. Like if your opponent has game on the board, they don't care if they discard 3 cards to unsuspend their Digimon to attack you. Like that's not going to be a deterrent. Like I guess the only way this card ever comes up in value is that if you get it like very, very early on in the game, like you can like straight chain into it, and then your opponent like can't have a way to get over it, and then they somehow like start like bleeding hand resources. I don't know. It seems really conditional. I think the best part about this card is that it's 13,000 DP, honestly, and that you can use it to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon and then in theory attack over it the same turn if it came out for like 3 or 2 memory. I think that's probably the best part about this card. Dorou Greymon. So your turn, for each card with X antibody in its traits. This Digimon's Digivolution cards traits, but anyway, oh my god. For each card with X antibody in its traits in this Digimon's Digivolution cards, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. So like I said, if you can like draft into this whole line, you're gonna get some decent bonuses as a payoff for Dorou Greymon. And then the one attacking is that you can place 1 card with X antibody in its traits from your hand at the bottom of your Digimon's Digivolution cards to delete up to 2 of your opponent's Digimon with play costs less than or equal to this Digimon's Digivolution cards. So it's a pretty heavy control effect, actually. So let's see. Let's say you have multiple Dorou Greymons, which is play cost 8. You're going to be able to pop any other... Yeah, you're going to be able to pop 2 level 5 or lowers if you... Well, except for Rhino Kabuterimon, because apparently he's a big-ass boy. But or Lucemon Chaosmon, I guess, too. Seems interesting. I think it's fine. Nothing to write home about. And you're going to have to really draft heavily into his line. It's fine. Cherubimon. When digivolving, you may play 1 purple tamer, keyword purple tamer card from your trash without paying its memory cost. So you can play Koichi. Wow. And then you can draw 1, discard 1 for playing Koichi. Then for each tamer you have in play, so it doesn't specify color, delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. Alright. On deletion, for each tamer you have in play, you may play one level 3 Digimon card from your trash without paying its memory cost. Again, doesn't specify color for either the tamers or the Digimon you play. I think you have to be pretty tamer heavy in order to get some serious value out of this card. And being tamer heavy is like dangerous. I think at most you can probably get away with playing like 4 tamers, and that's if you pull 4 tamers. And like, in order to make any further use of them, you have to pull their corresponding hybrid color. I think it's interesting. I'm not going to say you're not going to be able to get this off, because I definitely see a world where you do. I think this is actually probably, like, the more I think about it, I don't think this is a 2. I think this might be a 3. The fact that it's limited to only playing Koichi with its one digivolving effect is unfortunate, but the on deletion effect might be able to be cool, like get something worthwhile done. Avenged Kidmon. I'm not even gonna bother reading this. It just says fuck you if you're playing Three Musketeers, and there are no other Three Musketeers in the set. So yeah. Chaos Dramon. This only works in a Machine Dramon deck from EX1. I guess in theory you could put in a Metal Greymon into its sources in order to delete a opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less, but you're never going to get that off, so I think you skip out on this card. Saber Leomon is basically just a vanilla. That's a 15,000 DP beat stick for the turn you go into it, and then on deletion you gain 2 memory. I just think there's like better things you could be playing over this. If this is literally one of the only level 6s you pulled, then I guess it's fine, but it's just kind of whatever. Dino Rexmon, when Digivolving, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, and that Digimon doesn't unsuspend during their next unsuspend phase. So it's like a Puppetmon, Mega Gargamon effect, and then your turn, this Digimon gets plus 1,000 DP for each of your opponent's suspended Digimon. So he could be like 13, 14, 15. He can get kind of big, I guess. On average, he's probably going to be 13. 4 to Digivolve, I think it's just a little too not good. We'll go with that. Eosmon, absolute trash, don't play it, and that's the last level 6. Susanamon, if you pull a Susanamon, you put it in your deck. It is that simple. Kota, notable for being the only tamer that will set you to 3. And then the on-play effect is that you can add an X antibody in its traits from the top 4 to your hand. So if you, again, pulled a lot of that Dorou Greymon line, then Kota goes up in value. But I think even if you didn't pull those cards, I still think you play Kota. If you pull Kota, I still think you play it, if only because it sets you to 3. And it's the only tamer that's going to do that. Alright, going on to the hybrid tamers. I think Koichi is probably like the most generically useful one out of all of them. Just because his effect is on play, draw 1, discard 1. Seems fine. And hey, if you're running Eismon, you can use this to play Eismon. You can use it to draw 1, play Eismon for 3 memory. Seems okay. Koichi. On deletion, gain 1 memory for its inheritable effect. It's kind of whatever. Takuya and Koji. So both of these let you warp into their respective boss. So this one lets you warp into Emperor Greymon. This one lets you warp into Magna Garurumon. So you warp by placing 5 cards with hybrid in their traits from your trash under this tamer in any order. So you have to have 5 hybrids in your trash in order to warp, but that's not unfeasible, especially if you're really indexing into hybrids for your build. Then the inheritable is this Digimon gets plus 2,000 DP, and while it has 10,000 DP or more, gains security attack plus 1. So you can get security plus 1 on pretty much every level 6 if you somehow manage to climb from Takuya into level 6. Yeah, I think that's good. Koji's Inheritable is when an effect adds a card to your hand, gain 1 memory, then this Digimon can't be blocked for the turn. This one is definitely significantly worse. So number 1, tough to unsuspend yourself outside of Magna Garurumon effect. And there really isn't any blockers in the set anyways, so can't be blocked isn't like the greatest keyword. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Tommy. So on play, trash 3 Digivolution cards from the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon. So it's 3 Sorcerer on play. And Inheritable, when attacking once per turn, one of your opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards can't attack or block. So you can stun things out. So the ideal combo is to get this with Kakumon. And just like perma-stun one thing as much as you possibly can. Yeah, I think it's fine. It's fine. As far as blue tamers go, like I think these two are okay, and at the very least, Kakumon is a good card. Yeah. Zoe. So on play, search your security stack for 1 card with hybrid or 10 warriors, doesn't specify color, add it to your hand, and then recover 1. I think this one is actually should be a 2 or even a 3 right next to Koichi, especially if you're indexing on hybrid 10 warriors. This is going to be able to pull something out of your security. So essentially just a search 5, add 1, recover 1. We all know how good TK is, so yeah, she's good. And then her Inheritable is all your security Digimon get plus 2000 DP. Not the greatest, but it's worthwhile. It'll come up. JP. When you Digivolve into a green Digimon over this card, you gain 1 memory. So if you pulled Beetlemons or Metal Kabuterimons, then JP has a lot of value there, and then Inheritable is Piercing. So in theory, you can get some Piercing on some of your bosses, and that could be pretty cool. So JP, not the best, not the worst. I think he's probably about on par with Tommy. Maybe he's a little better, but he's definitely not as good as Takuya, and at least Koji can warp into Magna, so if you pull Magna, I think Koji has a lot more value than JP, and I think on that alone, he's probably worth the 2 rating over JP's 1. Alright, moving on to options. Calling from the Darkness. Main, delete 1 of your Digimon, then return up to 2 purple Digimon cards from your trash to your hand. Insane value synergy with Eismon. So what you could do, let's say you have Scatter Mode. Let's say you have Eismon Scatter Mode out, and you have 2 Eismons in your trash. You could play Calling from Darkness, delete Scatter Mode to add back the 2 Eismons to your hand, and then you get Eismon Scatter Mode's effect on deletion. Draw 3, discard 2. Discard the 2 regular Eismons that you just added back with Calling from Darkness, and then play them to your field. For 1 memory, broken. Schwarzlersatz. For each Digimon with hybrid in its traits and tamer you haven't played, delete 1 of your opponent's Digimon, level 5 or lower. Really good card. Gated by the fact that it's purple. Luckily, Koichi is probably going to be one of the more generically good tamers, so at least like you don't have to feel bad about playing multiples of these if you pull him. And if you're heavily indexing into Eismon anyways, then you're running purple stuff regardless. So I think there's going to be opportunities for you to get this card off. Ultimate Sacrifice. This card just says play a purple level 5 Digimon from your trash without paying its memory cost. Memory cost. Because the Lucimon effect, the Lucimon text doesn't count since the other Lucimon is not in the set. Yeah, if you pull Chaos Mode with this card, I think it's an automatic inclusion. Starlight Velocity. You may play 1 Tamer card or 1 Digimon card with hybrid in its traits from one of your Digimon's Digivolution cards as a Tamer or another Digimon without paying its memory cost. And then security effect is you may play 1 Koji from your hand or trash without paying its memory cost. It's fine. For only 3 memory, I think it's fine. It could be an interesting way to expand your board or to reuse a tamer for another hybrid Digivolution, or maybe you just want, I don't know, to get your Coda back because you use it to evolve into Grumblemon or something like that. I don't know. That's fine. Unfortunately, yeah, it's blue, so that's gonna be weird. Blue Hawaii Death, plus 2000 DP, and then you can attack your opponent's unsuspended Digimon with no Digivolution cards. That's interesting. We all know how good Ikakumon was in EX1 format for Gabumon decks. So for one turn, you can turn any of your cards into a Ikakumon. Could come up. Tidal Wave. If you're running a Weimon deck, then I think this card is pretty interesting. Choose up to 2 Digimon cards in the Digivolution cards of one of your Digimon and play them as another Digimon without paying their memory cost. So it's like a double Kaiser Nail for 7 memory. Could be worth. Ultra Turbulence. Main. One of your opponent's Digimon and all of your opponent's security Digimon get minus 2000 DP. I think this card's actually pretty good because you're going to be able to kill one of your opponent's Rickies, and then you essentially buff your entire board by 3000 DP when they swing into security. I think that's kind of strong. Thunder Laser. If you have a Digimon with hybrid or 10 warriors in its traits in play, again, doesn't specify color, but you do need green to activate this card in the first place. Suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. It's going to let you attack over something that maybe your opponent wasn't expecting you to be able to attack over. So I think for that reason alone, this card is worth taking a look at. And Mugen. So this card says suspend one of your opponent's Digimon for 4 memory. And then that Digimon doesn't unsuspend during your opponent's next unsuspend phase. So this is going to be kind of like a pseudo blocker effect almost. So since you don't have blocker options really in this format, this could be an interesting way to stave off an opponent's attack. Worth considering. The rest of these options are really not that great, and you're going to have a hard time pulling them off. So just really quickly, Flame Memory Boost gives you Security Attack +1, and then you can delay for 2 memory. Fire Drake Strike. One of your Digimon with hybrid in its traits, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with DP less than or equal to the chosen Digimon's DP. Security Effect. Play a Takuya from your hand or trash without paying its memory cost. Gigastorm. Play cost 7. Delete 2 of your opponent's Digimon with 8000 DP or less. So out of these, I think Gigastorm is probably like the most generically useful one that you're going to have. But again, the problem with these options is that you have to have a red card in order to activate them. So they're going to be like really situational and definitely a potential dead draw, and the effect is not going to be worth it for that dead draw. Metal Cannon. Choose one of your Digimon with X antibody in its traits and draw one for each of that Digimon's Digivolution cards for 2 memory. Even if you do happen to draft into like a whole X antibody deck, like you just have better things to do than draw more cards for 2 memory. Pride Memory Boost. Real top 3 cards of your deck. Play a black Digimon card with play cost 4 or less among them. Trash remaining cards and then delay for 2. There's just not a lot of good black level 3s to be getting with that effect. Brave Metal. Delete one of your opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 6 or less for 5 memory. Okay. And then if you have a Digimon with 5 or more Digivolution cards and X antibody in its type in play, just delete one of your opponent's Digimon that isn't an X antibody. Really situational. I think the first effect, to be able to delete a Digimon that's just play cost 6 or less, is okay. And I guess if you're running Kota, then at least you have a black tamer to enable it. Because Lord knows the other black Digimon in the set are not that good. So that's going to be one of the only ways. But I think if you want to run just like a hard removal, you have Schwarzler-Sats, you have Gigastorm that are both better than this. Lightning Rush, plus 2000 DP for the turn, and then if you have 3 security cards, unsuspend one. Could come up, but the having exactly 3 condition and being yellow are both, I think, a little too much for you to be able to consistently consider running this card. Qualialice Blast, however the fuck you say that. When using this card from your hand, its memory cost is equal to the number of cards in your security stack. Okay. Interesting. Alright. And then the effect is one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 3000 DP for your turn. Then one of your Rassenmon gains security attack +1. So essentially this is just a delete a rookie for X cost, X being however much security you have. And then you're probably not going to have a Rassenmon on your board, or if you do, then you just get security +1. For, yeah, no. Too conditional. Dino Memory Boost. Suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, then place this card in your battle area. So it's suspend for 3 memory. Okay. And then you can delay for 2. It is a green card, so there's that. Luckily, Beetlemon, Metal Kabuterimon, and Rhino Kabuterimon are all worth playing. But I think if you want to suspend something, you have Thunder Laser to do that instead. So, yeah. Ancient Evolution. If you have a Digimon with hybrid in its form, you can use this option card and ignoring its color requirements. One of your level 4 Digimon can Digivolve into 1 Digimon card in your hand with the same color and with 10 warriors. The same color requirement is what kills this card, unfortunately. Just the likelihood of you being able to pull that off is going to be pretty low. So I don't think this card is worth a slot. Alright, so that was it. Went over every card in the set in terms of their usefulness in draft format. Again, this is a draft format review, not a regular set review, in which case I would be saying some completely different things about certain cards. But just as a general TLDW, too long, didn't watch, final thoughts on the set and what you should be running. I think running a hybrid focused package could be a pretty good way to focus your deck around, because then you can get off powerful effects like Jet Sylphimon, Rhino Kabuterimon, and then you can finish that off with Ancient Warriors top end. I think Kazushimon is pretty generically good as a boss. I think Emperor Greymon is pretty generically good as a boss. I think Megatherium is pretty generically good as a boss. I think the Eismon package is really, really powerful and definitely worth considering if you pull a lot of Eismons and Eismon scatter modes. However, you have to consider if you do that, you're going to run out of space to run other level 4 hybrids, which will enable like some hybrid top end stuff. So you kind of lock yourself into, am I running Eismon or am I running hybrids? And your tamers, I think you play Kota if you pull it, absolutely. You play Susanamon if you pull it, absolutely. The other tamers are kind of situational, except for Koichi, I think is the most generically okay one. I think because Koichi is the most generically okay one, and because Eismon is so powerful, I think the purple options in this set are going to be really worthwhile. Everything else is kind of so-so. And that's just kind of like my overall generic take on this set. And there is a world where someone pulls like 8 Toy Agumons and just plays Toy Agumon Rushdown. So be ready for that. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. I know that this one was pretty long, but if you stuck around, then thank you so much. Almost to 700 subs. So awesome. All right. GG's, guys.